Hi, this is Shayna from YumiYarns.com, and we are back with day 4 of our tutorials for the homegoing socks. And today we're going to work on moving up the leg. We finished up our heels yesterday, so if you missed that video, go back and watch it. If you don't have a pattern, I have the pattern linked in the description below this video. So you can grab a copy of that if you'd like to knit along with us. If these videos are coming out faster than you knit, that's fine. Just stop watching the videos and pick them back up when you're ready. Otherwise, I do know a couple people have said that they're actually just waiting until all the videos are posted, and then they're going to cast on once they can watch the whole series all the way through, and then go from there. And that way they can reference the parts that they need to go back to later on, but they at least can have a heads up of what to expect going into the pattern. So that's another option. But anyways, let's get started on our tutorial. I want to make sure and thank Lily from Merino y Vino for sponsoring the tutorials and this pattern by sending the yarn for it over to me. This is part of her yarn subscription box. It's a surprise box that she does quarterly. And this was the January 2023 colorway, and it's gorgeous, and I love it. And that is what I used to design these, the homegoing socks. So we are going to be picking up right about here and moving our way up the leg. So today's video is going to be all about the cables and twisted stitches. So let's get going. What we'll probably do going forward for this one, because there are so many things all over the patterning for this that I want to show you, we're going to kind of get you started. We'll get to where there's some new stuff happening. I'll show you the new stitch, and then I'm going to pause the video, work up to the next part where we have stuff going on, pick back up and show you the next tutorial. So you won't see me knitting this entire thing. That video would take forever. You'll only get to see the important parts though, so that it's easier to find the techniques that you actually need help with. All right, so this is the back of the leg, and I show that to you because this row right here, these are your purl bumps, and then this is knit stitches. So purls, you get all this bumpy fabric. Knits, you get these nice V's lined up. And the leg of the sock is completely done in what's called reverse stockinette. So this is stockinette, where all the purls are on the inside and the knit stitches are on the outside. For reverse stockinette, it's kind of what you would expect. All the knit stitches are on the inside and all the purls are on the outside. And we did this way because when you have highly textured stitches and patterns like this, where there's a lot going on with those cables, you want to be able to see very clearly where those knit stitches are to be able to see where those tree branches are. Because if we had knit stitches kind of mixed in, or, you know, even every other row, it would get really confusing and the pattern would be completely lost and you would never be able to see these trees. So that is what's going on there and why this texture difference is here. There is a reason, I promise. And it's okay, it is a lot of purling. You will survive, it is worth it. I'm personally not a huge fan of purling, but I love the way these look, so that is what we're doing. So at the end of our heel, you should have ended after working a row 2, which will put you on this side of your sock heel. So if we remember, our beginning of round was over here. We basically worked across these and then kind of just let them hang out there while we worked on the back half of the stitches for our heel. And then when we ended our heel, that brought us right back to here where we originally started our heel. So that's where we're going to start on our leg. Now that's not our new beginning of round. we're actually going to work a setup round quick to do the setup for our new beginning of round. So our first round, we're actually going to slip the first stitch like we've been doing, because I just worked that German short row there, see that? And it looks a little gappy there. It's okay, it'll cinch back up here, no worries. Don't worry about that little bit of what looks like a hole. Now we're gonna knit 23 stitches. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 15. So there's 15, and I forgot what I was going to tell you. There was something else. Oh, this is just for the size that I'm working. You might be working a different size, so your number will be different here. So 15, and since I know we're moving where the beginning of round is, I'm not using a stitch marker because I'm just marking it with my DPNs. I'm just going to keep going with this needle so that my beginning of round will be between needles. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Perfect. So this is actually my new beginning of round. So this is where you would place a marker, or if you're just using your DPNs to notate. I'm just going to remember that it's the one just past the heel turn here. That opening is my new beginning of round. Now I can add in my 5th needle here. And now we're actually going to get into the patterning. I know this seems weird if you've knit other socks. It seems very weird to have your beginning of round not at kind of a normal beginning of round spot. So typically you would have it either at the exact side of the sock or directly in the middle where this DPN split originally. But because of the patterning and for ease of writing the pattern for you and making it a little bit more simple to follow, we're going to have our beginning of round here, because now we can just pick up our chart or our written instructions and go, because we'll start here with our patterning, follow the instructions for that around, and then the back half is just purling. So once we get done with the chart, we'll just purl across and we are good. So let's start with our first round. This is going to be our setup. So we've got, where we're going to we're going to purl. 1, 2, 3. And you'll notice if you're following the chart, this is why I wanted to do this round with you. If you're following the chart, you'll notice that you'll get to a point where there are gray spaces. That just means that there are no stitches there. So you can just ignore that spacing and skip right over to the next stitch. And this is kind of nice. You'll notice before I was counting while I was talking, and now I'm not. And that is because we've got our cables here that we worked earlier, our purls here. So I know that we're just going to purl all the way to where the cables start. So I don't need to count those. I probably will want to go back and count and split my needles, but just so that they're a little bit more even. But for right now, this is where we're at. It makes it nice and simple. There we go. So see, I got to my last purl bump there, and we've got our 4 knit stitches. So again, if you're working from your chart, you see there were like 2 gray spaces right before you got to the knit stitches. That just means there's nothing there. You don't need to do anything, just skip right past it and go on to your knit stitches. They're kind of just there as placeholders so that the chart doesn't look weird with missing bits, missing spaces and everything, because there's some increases and decreases worked later on in the chart that would be weird if those gray spaces weren't there. Your chart wouldn't be square, it would be some awkward shape. And you'll notice again, I'm not actually counting. I'm just looking at my stitches to see where those purl stitches end and those knit stitches begin. See the smooth V's? Oops. So we'll do, sorry for the shaky camera, guys. Our 4 stitches here. And then we're just going to purl all the way around to the beginning of round. And while I do that, I'm going to split and evenly divide my stitches amongst my needles. And I will be back once I get to round 2, where we've got something fun to show you guys for a little tutorial. So I'll be back, see you in a minute. All right, and we are at round 2. So we are going to purl across until we get to our knit stitches. And if you have a chart, you will see that there is a kind of loopy looking icon right before you get to the knit stitches. That is a make 1 symbol, and if you're looking at the written pattern, it will just say make 1. Pretty simple, but I'm going to show you how to do a make 1. So there's a couple different ways that you can do this. There's just like a make 1 right or make 1 left, which involves picking up the bar between the stitches in a specific way. You do it one direction to make the stitch lean to the left, and you do it another direction to make the stitch lean to the right. Oh, look at that. I am right there. And in this case, there we go, we're going to be taking our tree trunk here and starting to grow it out so it's a little bit wider. So we want it to go that direction. You can also do a lifted increase, which is what I'm gonna do here. It's really smooth and nice. So to do that, you pick up the leg in the stitch below. You just put it on your left needle, and then you knit. And then you knit the actual stitch. And you have increased 1 stitch. Fairly simple. So now instead of 4 knit stitches, we have 5 knit stitches. It's very smooth, almost invisible. It's really nice. And that was a lifted increase to the right, so a right lifted increase. And then we're going to go over to the next group of knitted stitches. purled stitches. And sorry, I wanted to make sure I wasn't overdoing it with the purls. Got one more here. And we're going to do a left lifted increase. So we're at our knit stitches, finished our purls. So we're going to knit 4. And now to do a lifted increase that leans to the left, we're going to take not the stitch right below the one that we just worked, but the one right below that. Because if we took the leg of this one, we would basically just undo that stitch and it would just look weird and wouldn't work. You'd have a giant hole. But if we take the stitch below that one and put it on our needle, I'm going to knit into the back leg of that stitch. Go. Now we have our 5 stitches with this one leaning to the left. And then we're going to continue on in our round 2 and actually continue on in pattern. There's no new techniques until round 6. So we're just going to have a nice time knitting, and I will be back to show you the new technique in round 6. See you in a minute. All right, so we are at round 6, and in this round we are going to get a couple new stitches. It's the first of our cables on our trees, other than the ones on the stems, which is really exciting. So the cables that we encounter in this round are a 2x2 right purled cable and a 2x2 left purled cable. And they're very similar to our cables that we did for the tree trunks. If you go back to lesson 2, where I kind of break down the different cables and what's going on with them and how they're labeled and what that means and everything, it'll make a lot of sense to you what's going on. I'm going to have to do a little bit of setup here because of the way that I split up the stitches. So with the 2x2 cables, that means we're going to have 4 stitches total that it's worked over. So I have to grab a stitch from this needle here. Oops. Because you look at your written or charted pattern, you'll see that it's worked over 4 stitches, 2 of which are purl stitches, 2 are knit stitches. And because it's a right purled cable this time, that means we want the cable to be leaning to the right. So that means these first 2 stitches are going to be in back because we want these stitches to cross in front to the right so that we can see this part of the tree branching off this direction. And these ones, since they're purls, you know that they're kind of just background stitches, so they go to the back. So, and since the purled cable, those will actually stay as purled stitches. So 2x2 right purled cable means 2 stitches by 2 stitches, twisting to the right, and some of the stitches are purled. So we will do that so you can see kind of what I'm talking about. Get that extra needle out of there. So to do this without a cable needle, if you have a cable needle, just slip these 2 stitches onto your cable needle, hold it to the back, knit these 2 stitches, then knit the 2 stitches or purl the 2 stitches off your cable needle, and you're done. If you're doing it without a cable needle like I am, we're going to slip all 4 stitches onto our right needle, And since we want the purl stitches, so the first 2 stitches, to be in the back, we take our left needle and go through from the back side. Oops. And scoop up those stitches. Typically it's not this difficult, but I'm at a weird angle with the camera. There we go. So we've got the purled stitches on our left needle and all 4 stitches on our right needle, but we're going to pinch right below where the stitches are on the needles, slide the right needle out, and slide it back into the knit stitches. So now we've got our stitches split across 2 needles. The purl ones are staying to the back, the knit ones are staying to the front, because those are the ones we want to see, because those are the ones doing the moving and expanding the tree branch. So we're going to cross the cables, or the stitches, and slide these back onto the left needle. And before you even knit it, you can see that the cable is twisting to the right, which is very exciting. You can see we've got our tree here, and now our first branch is twisting off to the right. And now we're going to knit the knits and purl the purls, which just means, since these first 2 are our knit stitches, we're going to knit those. And since these 2 are our purl stitches, we're going to purl those. And that extra needle there, being a pain. There we go. See, we've got 2 knit stitches, 2 purled stitches. You can see the purl bumps there, the V's from the knit stitches there. And that is our 2x2 right purled cable. Now we're going to work across to this side, where we will do a 2x2 left purled cable. So we'll just follow our pattern and get to where we need to be for that. And kind of like I told you before with this part, if you want, you can put markers in, but I don't really think you need to, especially once you see, here's your knits, here's your purls, and let's see, oh, I almost forgot a make one. So we're going to do, actually for this one, I'll do a regular make one. We're going to do a make one left. So we're going to pick up the strand of yarn running between the 2 stitches on our needles from front to back and knit through the back loop. So, oops, I'm going to take that off. So this is the strand right here that's running between the stitches. And let's see. So we'll use our left needle, pick up that strand, and then we're going to knit through the back loop. So when I do that, I just do that to set it up. Knit. There's our make one. Not too terribly painful. Now we're at our purls. So we will purl across. And if you're following the written instructions, just follow your written instructions. I know a lot of people get kind of intimidated by charts. It seems like people either love charts or they don't, and they're not interested. So I wanted to make sure I gave a lot of tips for kind of working through the charts, because I think that they are the best. So we've got all our purls. We're back at our knits. We need to do a make one, and I'm going to do a make one right. So to do the make one right, we're going to use the left needle to pick up the strand of yarn running between the 2 stitches from back to front, and then we'll knit through the front loop. So again, this strand of yarn right here is what it's talking about. We're going to pick it up from the back, and we're going to knit through the front leg. And see, it's actually twisted, like, not twisted, but it's typically you would want this leg to be in front, but then it would twist the wrong way when we make it. So we're going to knit through here. I'll show you what I mean. If we would have knit through the other leg, it would have just made a hole. But here, it actually twists that strand around the stitch you just made and cinches it up, so it's almost impossible to see what was going on and that it came from the strand between the stitches once it's actually worked into the knitted fabric, which is kind of fun. And I'm going to work until the last stitch on here, because then that one will have to move over to the next needle so that I can work my cable. All right, and we're doing a 2x2 left purled cable. So it's very similar to the right purled cable. Again, we're over 4 stitches because 2 stitches will cross over 2 stitches. So 4 stitches total. 2 are knit, 2 are purled. And this time, since we're crossing to the left, the stitches that are first up are our knit stitches, and we want them to go that way. So we want them to be in front. So these will stay in front, these 2 will stay in back. We'll cross these over, and off we go. So similar to what we did before, we'll slip our stitches that we're going to be cabling onto our right needle. And since we're slipping these ones to the front, our left needle goes to the front to pick them up. Pinch right beneath where your needles are, pinch the fabric. Slide your right needle out. Put it back in those purl stitches. Slide them back to the left needle. And there we go. Now we're going to purl first in this case, because those were our purl stitches, and then we're going to knit these 2. So 2x2 left purled cable. Now we're going to just continue on following your pattern. The next new stitch is going to be on round 12. So keep knitting, have fun, and I will see you there. All right, so we are done with round 11, on to round 12, and you should be starting to see the beginnings of our tree branching and splitting off and looking much more tree-like. So we're going to keep moving forward, and we're going to be doing something different with this cable in this round. Instead of a 2x2 right purl cable, we are going to be doing a 2x1 right purl. There we go. And all that means, I bet you can probably figure it out after all the discussions of cabling we've had. 2x1 is going to be worked over 3 stitches, and this one, it has 2 knit stitches and 1 purl stitch. So we're just decreasing a little bit what is all involved in this cable, because we're starting to get to the point that this particular branch is going to be a little bit thinner than it was. We're not quite getting to the end of it. It's still going to split later on and branch out a bit more, but for right now we only want it to go over at a slight angle. So instead of continuing in this sort of right angle direction we're going to kind of taper off that angle a little bit and just do a 2x1. So to do that, these are our 3 stitches we're going to work over. Here's our 2 knit stitches, here's our purl stitch, and the purl stitch is going to go to the back because that's our background. We've got our knit stitches here, we want those in the foreground so they'll be to the front. So just like we did before, we're going to slip our 3 stitches over to the right needle. We're going to bring the left needle to the back to get that purl stitch, our background stitch. I'm going to pinch the stitches right below the needle, reinsert the right needle to our 2 knit stitches, bring them across in front so we can slide them back to the left needle, and there it is. And we're just going to knit the knits and purl the purls. So we'll knit 2 and purl 1. And believe, I'm just going to double check my pattern. We do have another one coming up here that is a 2x1. Right purl cable. And yep, I'm going to have to readjust my stitches just a little bit again here. So I'm going to slide that one up and take this last purl stitch and move it there. And so here's my 3. Got my 2 knits, my purl. I'm going to go a little bit quicker with this one since you've already seen how to do it. And sometimes I don't pinch it quite enough. Go. It kind of drops off, but it's pretty easy to pick back up if you drop one of the loops. There we go. And I'm actually going to knit those onto this needle because I feel like it's going to balance out my stitch count a little bit better. So we've got our 2 knits. And our purl. And that was splitting another branch off. Now we've got a little bit more of just working in pattern here. And then we will actually have another 2x2, but this one will be a left purl cable. So I just want to make sure, yep, oops. And then here's our 2x2 left purl cable, which we did just a little bit ago in this video. Since we're going to the left, we're bringing the needle in front. Bringing our knit stitches over in front of the purl stitches, purling. Oops. These two. And knitting these two. And then right after that, we have a 2x2 right purl cable. So we'll get that one going. Got my stitches slipped over to the right needle. Grab from the back my purl stitches. Put my knit stitches back onto the right needle. And then back onto the left needle. And then knit two, and purl two, and off it goes. And we've got 2 more purls. Oops. There we go. 2 more knits, and I'm going to slide these two over to this needle again to kind of just balance things out a little bit. But now I've got a 2x1 left purled cable. So we've got our 2 knits here, our 1 purl stitch. Bet you can figure out what we're going to be doing. We're going to slide those 3 off the left needle and slide the left needle into the front so that we can move the knit stitches across in front. Slide the right needle out, put it back in that purl and bring it around the back. Then we will purl the purl and knit the knits. And that is that for the new stitches, I believe, on this row. Oh, nope, I was wrong. We have 1 more. Well, it's not really a new stitch at this point. You've been doing this. It's 1 more left purl. Excuse me. 1 more 2x3 left purl cable. There are a lot of very slightly different cables in this pattern. So we've got our 3. We'll bring our knit stitches to the front, across the purl stitch, which will go to the back. And then we'll purl this guy and knit these ones. And purl the rest of this round. And then the next new stitch we'll be learning is going to be in round 16. So have fun knitting, and I will see you in just a few. All right, so we are back. We are on round 16. You can definitely see those trees taking shape. We did our first twist together of the trees during our little time apart here. And now we've got a new technique coming up that is going to take place right over here onto this branch. It's going to split the branches even smaller. And this one is a 1x1 right purl cross cable and a 1x1 left purl cable, which I bet you guys can guess by now what that means. So I'm going to work across over to where we will be doing our stitch. stitches because they're actually back to back. And these tiny little cables like this are actually some of my favorite stitches. I know the big chunky cables look really cool, and I love the way that they look and change the whole shape and look and everything of a design, but these tiny little cables, they make me so happy to make. So I've stopped one stitch before our knit stitches. So we've got a 1 by 1 right purled cable here. So we've got a purl stitch and a knit stitch, so 1 and 1, and we're just going to flip them like we've done before. So since we're going to the right, that means we want the background stitch going to the left, and our knit stitch is going to the right, just like that. So we're going to knit that one, purl that one, and that is our 1 by 1 right purled cable. Now the very next batch is a 1 by 1 left purled cable. So we have 1 knit stitch, 1 purled stitch. We're going to cross them over each other to the left. So slide into your right needle, grab your knit stitch with your left needle, put the purl stitch back on the right needle, purl the purl stitch, knit the knit stitch. There we go. Got our tree branch split into even thinner branches. And I'm going to go ahead and knit across around the rest of this round and the next round, and then I will meet you back here on round 18 for our next new technique. All right, we are back. We are on round 18, and this technique is just a super simple one. If you're looking at the chart, the symbol looks kind of like an upside down make one, and really all it is twisting this stitch. So instead of knitting into it normally like that, we're not going to do that. We're actually going to knit through the back loop. So to do that, you just put your needle through by the back loop, or by the back leg rather, and then knit there. And what that does is, if you look at this stitch, the legs are crossed differently than your normal V. It looks like a V with crossed legs instead of a V with V-shaped legs, I guess. But see how that one's crossed and those ones are more open at the bottom? That's the difference, and that's all that symbol is. That's just how you make a twisted stitch, and that's what that symbol means. So knitting through the back loop makes your twisted stitch. That is it. We're going to keep moving on. We've got quite a bit of knitting for the next one because we'll kind of get past the bulk of our trees here. And then our next section that we're going to work on, our next new technique, is going to be actually starting to decrease out some of those stitches that we added in earlier, because we'll be finishing up our trees, or at least getting towards the end of finishing the trees. So I'm going to come back with you on round 28 for our next new stitch, and I'll see you then. All right, we are on the last little bit here for this section of the sock. On round 28, we're going to do a purl two together, which is just what you think it is. It's you take these 2 stitches, and purl them at the same time. And that's going to end off this branch, and that will decrease one of those extra stitches that we had added in. And since our next thing is way at the end of this patterning row, I'm going to cut it here, and I'll be back in just a moment to show you that. All right, now we're on to the fun decrease. This is a purl two together through the back loop, which means we're going to be working through this side of the stitches. This can kind of feel like knitting gymnastics, so just be patient with yourself. It might take me a few moments here too, because this back stitch likes to tighten up. So I'm going to actually do that to loosen it, and then hold it still with my thumb, and then go through both of them. Oh, but I didn't put my yarn in the right place. The yarn has to be to the front for purling. There we go. Purl and off. There we go. And if that's hard on your hands or super tricky, you can just do a regular purl two together. You don't have to do it through the back loop. It does make for a slightly nicer laying stitch when you're finished, but it's not the end of the world. And if anybody is that close to your socks where they're being nitpicky about which decrease you used, you can just tell them to back off. But we are done with the new stitches on this section. Our trees are starting to actually look like trees and cables and beautifulness. So I'm going to leave you to finish the leg of your socks, and I will be back tomorrow with the last little bit. We're going to do the cuff and the bind off of our socks. So right through here and our bind off. And I will see you then. Have a great day.